For joining us for our webinar series. Today we have Barb Carr, and she's going to be telling us about top psychosocial hazards putting your workers' health and safety at risk. Wow, that's a lot, Barb. What does that even mean?
Well, let's think about it this way. So, supporting mental health in the workplace is really important. And I think in the past few years, we made a lot of progress doing that. A lot of companies have done really great at raising awareness about mental health issues. Mm-hmm. But it's also important to take that second step and proactively really support the workers in a very tangible way. So one way that you can do that is by identifying psychosocial hazards.
All right. So you're going to tell us what psychosocial hazards are, right? What is psychosocial? I mean, that if you listen to heavy metal, there's a song called Psychosocial. So
well, it's a little bit different than that.
Okay.
Psychosocial hazards sometimes get confused with, well, stress. Stress is a psychosocial hazard. Mm-hmm. But stress is actually a byproduct or something that happens if someone is affected by these hazards. It's not a psychosocial hazard itself. But we know that stress in the workplace is bad for so many reasons, because it can decrease productivity, it makes work teams not work very well together. So let's talk about some that I find to be very common. And the first one is lack of control. So just not knowing anything about it, what would you think that lack of control would be as a worker?
I would think maybe something that's happening outside of my control, where management might be the one to make the decision, but I'm getting stressed over the things that I can't control. Responsibility is on me.
Yes, and that can be some of it, but it can be something really small too, like if someone feels like they don't have any control over when they take their breaks. Mm-hmm. Like if they have a very physical job and they're tired and they can't take a break because the boss hasn't said you can take your break now. Mm-hmm. Or they can't even control their lunch, what time they're going to take their lunch hour.
Right.
So that maybe one of their kids have an appointment or they have an appointment and they can't really schedule it very well because they have no control over when they leave or come back from lunch. Mm-hmm. It could mean something like just making decisions about how the work gets done that day. Like some jobs are structured so that they want the boss is micromanaging and they're on them like, no, this comes first and then this and then this. And the worker may have an idea, well, I could do this so much more efficiently and effectively if I do it this way, but they don't speak up because they feel such a low amount of control in that job. Mm. So see, it could be a broad range of things, the thing that you mentioned, all these other things, but I have a little handy list here of things we can listen for our workers saying to see if this is really a hazard in our workplace.
Okay.
So when we hear comments like from workers like, well, I'm just following orders. I'm just following the orders here. Or why should I make a suggestion on how to do this job? Nobody really cares. Mm. Or, gosh, someone's always looking over my shoulders. I just can't get my work done because somebody's always like micromanaging me. Or I need to take a break right now, but I can't. I'm waiting for my break. I got to wait for my break. Mm. Or we hear this a lot when this hazard is present. These deadlines are unrealistic. Mm-hmm. Like I can't possibly get this work done in this amount of time. Because this would indicate that this employee feels no control over the time frame to get things done. Mm-hmm. So you can see the stress that comes out under any of these types of situations. Have you ever heard any of these kind of comments?
I have.
Have you experienced them or in any other jobs?
Not here, but yes, I understand exactly what that's like, and that pressure that you feel, and it's an overwhelming feeling. Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we hear comments like this in the workplace, we really need to think about how can we structure this job so that the micromanaging is not necessary. So some of the steps that we can take is take a look at some of the decisions that the employee needs to make that they're having to ask the supervisor permission to do or go forward. Mm-hmm. So first of all, are there any low risk, low consequence tasks that they're doing that's really not necessary to ask for permission every single time, like to send an email or order some office supply or something small like that. There's also things to think about to fix this problem, like is there a way we can write a procedure or strengthen a procedure so the employee can be more autonomous and the micromanaging is not necessary? Or can we do better training so that the employee becomes more skilled so that they don't have to ask permission? They can be trusted to do this job,
I don't know if you're going to get to this in a minute, but even some of those things that people are saying is indicative of a poor culture.
Yes.
Oh, I'm not going to speak up because, or it doesn't matter what I have to say because that silencing, which does add to the stress, shows that there's probably a bigger problem in there as well.
Yeah, definite lack of control. Employees get very frustrated when they feel like they have no control over their day, especially when there's these, very low risk, low consequence things that they're having to ask permission to do.
Yeah.
So it just makes a much better work culture if everybody feels like they're trusted, that they're trained for the job, that they know the proper channels of communication, that they know what they're supposed to be doing. That can really solve that problem of lack of control. So that's one. Another one I want to talk about that's really common in the workplace is unclear roles and expectations. What do you think about that one? I just want
That sounds like something on a snap chart and a root cause tree that I've been hearing recently over the past couple of days in training.
People didn't know that was their job,
Right.
or what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, unclear. There's a lot of stuff going on with that. So that would be definitely stressful. And when we're talking about psychosocial safety in the workplace, there's some ways to mediate that, to correct that. So what do you have?
Yeah. Well, first of all, again, we have to listen for it. So psychosocial hazards are harder to identify in the workplace than physical hazards. Because as safety professionals, we're accustomed to going to a work site or to a plant and looking around for, electrical hazards or chemical hazards or, gravity and motion hazards. Those are often visible to the eye, but a psychosocial hazard often is not. So we have to have really good listening skills. So some of the things that we might hear are, gosh, I'm getting pulled in so many different directions by so many supervisors or so many people, or I don't know who to even report to about this issue. I don't even know who to talk to about this. Or your employee might come right out and say it, what is my role here? What am I supposed to be doing? So in TapRooT, some of this is covered under the root cause accountability needs improvement. And a lot of people get what accountability means as defined by TapRooT. They don't understand what that means. But as defined by TapRooT, it is not a problem with the person or the character of the worker. So in the English language, we like to say accountability is like a character problem, like they're not accountable. They're not being accountable for their job, they're either lazy or they don't care, they're not paying attention. But as defined by TapRooT, accountability is a management system problem. So that is that, somewhere in the management system there's a breakdown and the workers do not understand.
It's not clearly defined that they're the one that's supposed to do this.
Yeah, and so we do a really simple example in class sometimes. For example, we're in the studio today. You're here. We've got Josh behind the camera.
You just broke the fourth wall, Barb.
We've got people in the studio with us. When I walk out tonight and I say, hey, last one out of the studio, turn out the lights, I have not assigned accountability to anyone. So you might think, well, Josh will turn out the lights.
Exactly.
Josh might think, well, somebody else will turn out the lights because I have not assigned accountability. But if I walk out of the studio and I say, hey, Emily, would you turn out the lights when you walk out? Now I have assigned accountability. That the expectation is that you're going to turn out the lights. So that's a super simple explanation of
Josh, can you?
That's a super simple explanation of what accountability means. So what we need to do is, we're not trying to fix the character of the worker to fix this psychosocial hazard of unclear roles and expectations. That's our job as managers. That's a management system problem that we need to fix.
That causes undue stress on the employee.
Yes, yeah. And that's pretty common. I've been in jobs and in roles where I wasn't sure, like, am I supposed to be doing that? And then you'll notice if people don't know what they're accountable for, sometimes the job gets done twice. We have more than one person doing it, or nobody doing it at all.
Nobody turns the light out.
Nobody turns the light out.
I thought you were going to do it. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a real hazard, and that can cause, we talked a little bit about stress and the negative impact of stress on the workplace. This could cause a lot of stress on our teams and among our workers.
So what's number 3?
So number 3 is one that's been around forever. I've been in the workforce for well over 30 years. I'm not going to say exactly how many years, but poor work-life balance. That's a psychosocial hazard. And we've come a long way with work-life balance, and what that means is we have a good balance between, you know, our work life and our time with our family, or leisure time, or time to just unplug and rest and relax. And of course, in the day of remote working, you would think that it's getting better and better. But I was at a gift shop the other day and I saw a coffee cup with a really kind of a funny quote about remote working that made me laugh, because I'm a remote worker part of the time now. And that quote said, let me think of exactly what it said. Is it, am I working at home or am I living at work? Am I working at home or am I living at work? Because it can feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
Where you would think, well, if you're working from home, that's great work-life balance. But sometimes I find it's really hard to turn off. Like the emails on our phones now, you know, texting and Google Chat and all of that stuff.
There's multiple avenues of communication, too. It's not a centralized spot, so that's overwhelming. And work-life balance, you know, I think there's more conflict between work and life. And that is a big issue, especially when it's hard to unplug because there's maybe some unspoken expectations that email needs to be answered immediately. Yeah. Well, if it's after hours, depending on what kind of job you have, but if it's after hours, it can wait. But there's that sometimes we do it to ourselves.
Yes.
Where we think that we've got to jump, we've got to save the day, we've got to answer that right away, where it can wait.
Yeah, and I think taking care of the psychosocial hazard we just talked about, like the unclear roles and expectations, that could be, you know, the manager can go a long way in helping that work-life balance. But when we're thinking about what we might hear around the facility or around the plant to see if there's a work-life balance challenge, we might hear things like, gosh, I need a vacation. Gosh, I need a break here. I need more time to relax. Or I'm missing important things with my family. Just being a supervisor and overhearing those kinds of things. Or just reviewing the time records and seeing that someone is consistently working overtime just to keep up with their job. Just to keep up with the job. So a thing that you can do to solve this, and when I used to manage people, I would try to incorporate this yearly, is to have people tell me, what are you working on? Like, or make a list of your roles, you know, make a list of the tasks that you do every day, because that knocks out more than one hazard. Because I'm not only looking for work-life balance, but I'm also seeing, you know, the unclear role and expectation.
Or overlap.
Or overlap there, you know. And then we can, when we have a list of, everybody brings their list, I can see what do they think they're accountable for. And I was always surprised when I would see the list of things that people thought they were accountable for or didn't recognize they were accountable for. And that is a failure on management side, you know. It's not a failure on their side if they're making the list thinking that this is the stuff I'm supposed to do. So one great thing to do annually, I think, is to really review with everyone, what do you think your roles and, you know, in the expectations of you are, and really make that clear. That takes a lot of pressure off of our employees so that they can feel like, okay, this is my work, you know. And this is what I can focus on, and clears up a lot of things, and I think helps with work-life balance.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So that's a lot of stuff to take in, to absorb. You know, the listening, those cues for what somebody might be saying if they're voicing some type of, you know, and it's not just what they say. I mean, there's body language, there's other little comments and things that could allude to that. And in the big picture, we also know that, you know, kind of missing that stuff. If somebody's making comments about not having work-life balance, they may be distracted. They may be in their head somewhere else, and then that leads to a further problem down the line. So by having those pulse checks with
Oh,
people just to see, you know, how's everything going. The clear communication's on that tree for a reason.
That's right.
All those things help improve productivity, sure, but it makes happier, healthier workers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, as we talked about, really trying to mitigate those psychosocial hazards is very beneficial for improving the workplace and protecting the health of our workers. And we've only covered 3 here. There are so many more. And I think it's worth looking into. I've been doing a lot of research on them lately, and it's been super interesting. But we hope that this introduction to psychosocial hazards gets you thinking about some of those things.
Yes, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching.